Dr. S, you can start.
My PPT is, I think it's shared.
You can start now.
Okay. So good evening, dear learners. So today we are going to discuss about the MDI 2 and Unit 20, Debating Nations and Transnation, along with the human rights with the transnational and etc. So this MDI 2 has 4 block comparatively with the other courses. So here, this debating nations and transnation, when we are discussing about it, we in this unit we will learn about the what is nation. So we are going to define the nation itself as it is, and different aspects of uh, uh, analysis and when we are talking about the nation and significance of nation and transnation. So I have a citizenship of being an Indian. I have Indian citizenship. When I have a transnation, I have a multiple citizenship, or I move across the countries. So how this is bringing some kind of uh, significance in these two aspects. And what is it we are going to do in this particular unit is we are going to understand the concept of nation and transnation and major debates relating to nation and transnationalism, and understanding the concept of citizenship and identity. So sometimes we will not much bother about the citizenship and the things that we are born and we are getting the citizenship, but globally, how it is looked into. Okay, and the major debate now is going on the illegal migration, which is the learning part from the practicality in today's world. And around 200 people are caught and sent back to India. So major debate is going on, and a lot of dispute and the kind of international relations and everything is talked. So I request the learners to kindly watch what are the political stand and the act and everything. And there are other things also is going on which are political nature and the giving visa and everything. So I give the platform open to the learners to kindly watch and learn about the practicality of the diaspora community. So apart from that, this, excuse me. Some issues. Just a minute. I will share it. Okay. So, so debating nation and transnation. So that's important aspect when we are dealing with. So when many of the controversies that is going on surrounding the phenomena of nationalism can be the when we trace back this this is the one which constitute the nation. So the constitution clearly defines how who can be the citizens of that country. So in the other class also we have seen one of the learners asked about the why the Arab countries are not giving the citizenship to the uh, people in East Asia, right? In especially in Arab countries like Qatar and everything. So that is the each country has its own kind of constitution or practices, or they go by religious values and everything. So that defines whether getting the citizenship is easy or not in the particular country. So the idea of the nation is accepted that it is a distinctive feature or seldom examined or questioned. The nation is simply taken for granted, right? What is, first of all, the nation is all to be? When you talk about the term nation, tends to be used with a little precision. It's often interchangeably used with the terms such as state, such as country, such as ethnic group or something like that. So in India, we have, when we say state, it locates to a particular region, right? Tamil Nadu is a state, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal, Odisha. So when you say state, it goes to the particular region or particular ethnic group. But when you say, if I was in Zambia, they will call it as a province, right? When you say state, it's for the country. Okay, so each denotes is differently, right? So in India we say that a state means it's good to the particular province for other countries view. And so when you look into the United Nations organization, for instance, it's clearly misnamed as it's an organization of states, not one of the national population. So, what then the characteristics or feature of the nation? So, what is the nation is all about? What distinguishes the nation from any other social group or the country? We say that what is a, what when you say nation, what is exactly denotes, right? Uh, so when we trace back that, when we say nation, it is derived from the Latin word nasi, right? Nasi, which means to be born. Okay, I am born in that country, or to be born, right? So the word nation is derived from the Latin word nasi, which means to be born. So this term, it is has a kind of meaning related to ethically, sorry, ethnical meaning, or we say that it is based on a particular region or a racial, or denotes the persons who belong to a particular group, right? So I am born in a particular linguistic group, so I am belong to that particular nation or particular group. So that is very very important when this taken from the Latin term. So etymologically, the nation is a people descended from a common stock. So when it used in this sense, the nation means people, means brought together in a society by ties of or we say that blood relationship. Okay, see, you see that when you look into these when you go to the small explanation of this thing, when you go to the village community, a typical village community, not that modernized, if you see, or the tribes, they have that ethnical connection, the racial connection, right? They have that kind of ties of blood relationship. They have a common system. They have a common culture in terms of from birth, or celebrating the marriage or celebrating anything. They have the kind of a culture which brings them together. So that is then a typical example when you talk about the nation. So since they are born to a particular tribal community, they have that ethnical connection or the racial connection, right? So beyond that, and the famous authors like Burgess clearly defined that the nation in a racial sense, right? Or very very in a ethnical background. To him, for them, the nation is a population of ethnic unity inhabiting a territory of a geographical unity. So I have given as an example of tribal group. So when you say they have a kind of geographic unity, right? So they have where to, till then, what is the geographical boundary they have to uh, uh, have their power, so, right? So very initially, so ethnic unity is the one. He means a population having a common language and literature, a common tradition and a history, and a common custom and a common consciousness of rights and wrong, right? So they emphasize more on the nation as an ethnic group, though often loosely used, is probably to be thought of having a racial or ethnographical significance. So that's what a earlier thought when you talk about the concept of nation. So when you talk about these little more elaboratively on the term, it is an aggregation of people having a special ties with which bind them, right? So it is a population. When you say population, there are a lot of people, lot of with their own characteristics and everything, but it's aggregate. Aggregates means it's bring everything together, bring the total of the people in under one roof, right? So it's a people possessing common distinctive features and united by special ties and sentiments are referred to the nation. So a famous sociologist called J.S. Mill uh, brought this definition that the identity of political antecedents and the possession of a national history and the consequent community of recollections and collective pride and humiliation, pleasure and great connected with the same incidents in the past, right? He brought various elements into when we talk as a nation, right? So he brought the political antecedents. They have kind of power with them, right? The by generation to generation, and they have a possession of a national history, right? They have the history to speak about their possession of that particular geographical location. So in these two terms, he with the uh, bring the this political emphasis on the term nation, and he bring the social terms like a consequent community of recollections. So when you say community, it is togetherness, right? So they will be sharing the common culture, common norms, common values. So there is a consequent continuous recollection of uh, community, and there is a collective pride and a collective humiliation, right? So when it is something is great for them, it's a collective pride is there, so they will feel proud of themselves, they feel high, uh, they showcase that everything. And when is there is a collective humiliation, so when it's something happened to the particular group, they are being humiliated collectively, not individually, right? So there is a pleasure and great regret connected with the same incidents in the past, so they have the past experience on the same. So what the sociologist James Mill uh, portray to us when we call this a nation, it is a political uh, a kind of uh, identity with them, and at the same time they have the social connectedness. So this both are very very important as for J.S. Mill's definition, right? So when uh, when we even talk about his definition little in a very elaborative manner, he brings a lot of a kind of value to the concept of the nation, right, which we need to explore more, right? So they bring he brings that it is not only the social connected, but the power of the power they are vested with on their particular group, okay? So another political thinkers defines that the nation is a body of persons, right? Not only it's a kind of simple thing, it's a body of persons inhabiting a defined territory. That's very, very important. They have a defined territory, right? It means that they have a geographical location. So India has its own territory. Bangladesh is having its own territory, right? Even now, the Bangladesh and India is facing a problem with the former prime minister of that Bangladesh. Today, if you read the newspaper, there is a lot of thing Bangladesh is requesting to government of India to uh, the problem of the former prime minister and the present prime ministers of Bangladesh. So that we have to see, because it's on the nation has its own power on their territory, right? And when you say that defined territory thus is united together by the primary fact of living together on a common land. So since it has its own defined territory, it has the fact of living together on a common land. Okay. So they have the freedom to use the land. So they were drawn from number of races and they came from different breeds, right? So this I think we learned now what is this clearly defines what is the nation is. So this definitions gives us it's a nation is constituted by a geographical unity. All right, that's very very important. They have a geographical unity. That territory brings them be united. When you say India, it is from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. We say that is a land which is combining us together. Right? We know where we are brother and sisters of India. So there is a geographical unity, and we have a common past. Right? So when you say India, we have a common past of freedom struggle. We have a common past of after freedom because we have a kind of a rich culture in across India. So common language, common religion, common history, common hopes, and common aspiration, which may not be possible in India, but even though we have a different language, different religion, and everything, we are united. So, but you take some countries like US or Canada or something, they follow a common language, common religion, common history, hopes, and aspiration, probably. So, it is an emotional feeling or a sentiment of people that they are and exclusively from others, right? So, this makes them this makes them they are different from others. So this makes them India is different from China, China is different from India, India is different from Bangladesh, Bangladesh is different from Australia. So because of this geographical unity, common past, common language, common religion, common history, common hopes and aspiration brings the or constitute the term called nation. When you say nation, India is a nation, we have common in geographical unity, past, and everything. Okay, so we slightly move uh, uh, from a kind of definition of transnation, right? So you see here, we take the examples of the Sri Lanka, particularly. A nation is a group of people who regard themselves as a natural political community. But you know the fight of Sri Lankan Tamils and Sri Lankan government. So Indian origins Tamils are in Sri Lanka and advocate themselves as a natural political community which is not accepted by the native of Sri Lanka since 1948. So all the successive governments have failed to find solution for the demand of Tamil community. Therefore, we cannot say that Indian Tamil origin is having a separate nation in Sri Lanka. So there is a problem to bring a separate nations in Sri Lanka, right? So it is not it's an, a typical example since you migrated or since you have gone there for a time being, so we cannot raise for a different nations or something like that, which is highly debatable. Okay, so here we move to the definition of transnation, the concept of transnation. So what is transnational? So for that, first we need to understand thoroughly on what is nation, right? So the concept of you talk about the transnation is a concept that extends beyond the conventional ideas of diaspora and cosmopolitanism, highlighting the interconnectedness of identities and relationships formed through the movement of people across borders, right? So what trying to say this transnationalism? So understanding of national border is necessary to define the transnation because refugees and asylum seekers move from one border to space to another and now may end up in the state of exception outside the law, right? So national border is necessary to define the transnation. First, we need to understand that. Oh, what is my national border? Okay. So, transnational reality that extends from within, goes and beyond national borders. So, transnation is beyond national borders. So, in that concept, we need to understand and what is the border of the particular nation, right? So, when you talk about the global population and or transitive without necessarily being transnational in the usual sense of this word. So I'm going to different countries, I'm not a transnational. So I go and visit and come, it's not a transnational concept. So within every nation state lies another imagined community we can call transnation. Okay. When you say within every nation, the imagined community we can call transnation. So we say that so the Bangladeshis are in India. Imagined community we call them as a transnational, right? So when you talk about the subject in the transnation may at various times identify with the nation with ethnicity, religion, family, or tribe. So when you talk about transnation is the fluid migrating outside of the state that begins within the nation, right? So migrating outside of the state that begins within the nation is a transnation, right? So they go out of the state. So this is possible most obvious in countries with a massive population such as India and China, where the nation is perpetual sense of migration and various forms of translation. So the people move from one country to another. Okay, when there is much population like India and China. So transnation reveals that all subject have at least some level of ability to move between the structure of the state. Okay, so they move frequently to the nation to nation and they come. Okay, for example, if you take the some significant regional of Indian diaspora, say in Gujarat communities. So Gujarat people from the central western parts of India have ventured out to different parts of the globe for various reasons. So today, if you see, the Gujaratis are successful not only in business, which is the occupation, they are also best known for, but also professional fields such as technology, science, and medicine, and management and other professions. So Gujarat community establishes connection within their native place and celebrates Gujarati cultural festivals such as Navaratri, Bhai Durga, and something like that abroad. So that leads to transnation value, very very important. So people try to establish their ethnicity in other countries, right? It is not only traveling and coming. Transnation is something that they try to bring their establish their ethnicity or establish their the system in different countries, right? So they are called the transnationals, right? So that we need to understand when the concept of transnation. So understanding the nation and transnation, first we need to clearly understand what is the uh, nation first of all. So that will leads to very very important area of transnational, right? So when you talk about the significance of nation and transnation, uh, they the for specific historic conditions and the political agendas of newly born nation states accelerated, sustain, and the cultural reproduction of national communities and the organization of political life. So very very important that the nation states are bringing their value system, their community sustainability and everything. So developing of nationhood into naturalized references of for one group's identity and its highlights throughout the decade, right? You see from the studies of 1990s and all highlights how imagined components of Venus, the national identities, is constantly produced and reproduced, negotiated and practiced on and bring a lot of symbols to the nation, right? So transnationalism has conceptually emerged as a range of complex social phenomena, right? And brought which interface the powerful narratives of cultural in-betweens and territorial and unboundedness, right? You see here, need to understand even when we are discussing about East Asian perspective. Some countries like in Arab countries, we are discussing on the migrants from Kerala, where they start recruiting people for teaching Malayalam in their countries. So, which reflects on the transnational, the cultural shift, right? So, you see that they celebrate Onam, they celebrate Pongal, or any festivals of Gujarati's festival abroad, means that the transnational link, right? The establishment of the transnational link is very, very, we need to discuss uh, in that perspective, right? So that brings the very, very solidarity and a very important aspect of the transnational community establishment in other countries, right? So we move to the aspect of the safeguarding human rights, right? So very, very important when we talk about uh, uh, the nations and transnation. What we understand about this, the human rights perspective? What is the scope of human rights? Why we need to understand the diaspora human rights? What is important to study, right? Do diaspora needs and human rights can able to bring or a system to stabilize whether they are given a proper rights in other country, right? So that we need to understand it, in that particular paper too, uh, uh, of very understanding of when you are discussing about the rights, what the country should do. Okay, as of Aristotle or has given, a nation or a government came into existence out of basic necessities of life and continues for the sake of good life. So it clearly tells us what the state, the government should do. Okay, so the government is formed. Why it is formed is it is came into existence out of basic necessities of life. So human life needs basic necessities. So some uh, 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 the authorized body should make sure that basic necessities are given and continuous for the sake of good life. Okay, so that makes that brought the government into system. And when you talk about the uh, rights, we talk about the existence of the state is we recognize with the protection of rights and liberties of individuals, which is the human main object of state. So any state should ensure that the basic human rights are protected in the country, right? So protecting of the dignity, protecting of the rights or of an individual is an element. So what if it is if it is not protected? That's a question when you ask. It will hit the harmony of the state, right? So imagine if the rights of the people are not given properly, it will hit the harmony of the state, right? And uh, lot of violation will take place. So very, very important that individuals be protected and given the dignity of being a human. So each individual is entitled to some rights which are inherent to human existence. Very, very important. So human rights cannot be violated, or people are not should not be discriminated on the basis of gender, race or caste or ethnicity or religion, etc., are called violation of human rights. So I should not be, my rights should not be violated because I was born in this particular region or particular caste group. Okay, that's very, very important when we discuss about the rights. And human rights are also known as basic rights, also known as fundamental rights, and also known as natural rights. Okay, means that when I am in the womb of my mother, I am getting my rights. Okay, my mother has no right to abort me. Okay, unless until it is legally is given. Otherwise, no. Right. So abortion or any kind of violation should not take place when I am in the womb of the mother. right? And the concept of human rights is not a new phenomenon. Human rights is a 20th century term, but its notion is old in humanity. It has gone through several phases of the development, and it's taken a long time to recognize, respect, to safeguard, right? So the rights had a place in all ancient societies through referred by different names. It includes civil rights, liberties, socio-cultural, economic rights, and so on. So, if we talk about the rights itself, it is way back from ancient times we have, and safe it has evolved. And safeguarding human rights is necessity for the development and growth of an individual personality, which ultimately contributes in the development of the nation as a whole, right? So it has an international recognized issue, and various international instruments have been established for the protection of human rights. So at an international level, when we talk about human rights, have been made the protection of human rights. The United Nations, UN, through its convention or charter represents a significant advancement in the direction of the promotion and protection of human rights, right? UN charter or UN charter, it's the which has given the human rights, which has the evolution started when the UN has come with human rights principles. So contains various provisions for the promotion of human rights and fundamental freedom in the preamble and the various articles, right? So apart from the UN Charter, there are other four international instruments created under uh, the human rights. One is the International Bill of Human Rights, which include the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948. Very very important. That is the starting point, the evolution of the concept of human rights, and International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights 1966, and we have International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights 1966, and the Option Protocol of International Covenant Civil and Political Rights 1966. So this has brought a very very important landmark on protecting the human rights and making it an international level, right? So they brought the economic rights of the people's social and cultural rights, which they were deprived or they are not given. So International Human Convention clearly stress upon the people not only just the basic rights should be given, moreover they must be given the all the aspects, including cultural, ethnic rights, and they have the rights to kind of civil and political rights they should have. So after as we understand, diaspora communities maintain balance between countries where they are from and to. So diaspora communities, we understand very clearly that they have the homeland and hosting land, right? And the transnational, some people will have a multinational business. So diaspora communities regularly meet with new challenges of human rights because they are belonging to their homelands. Okay. And when a country, many reasons such as dictator rule and internal and armed conflict or prosecution of certain groups of communities, they face numerous human rights challenges. So, in countries to countries, the transnationals face various human rights challenges which need to be discussed uh, such a way. So, when you talk about when we understand about the human rights perspective, we need to understand how this people, okay, uh, face various problems when you talk about the human rights perspective, right? So human rights are not just theoretical. Sometimes some people think that it's like a kind of theoretical perspectives we learn what is basic rights. Moreover, they are recognized standards to which government ought to be held accountable. Okay. Now we find we have National Human Rights Commission, which strongly recommends the government or involves in so many cases when something goes wrong, or ask the explanation from the government or investigate the cases when the human rights are violated. So that when we talk about this human rights, it has a five basic tenets, areas which uh, which that will apply to all people, not only the transnational. First one is the human rights. First one is it is universal, right? So is that they belong to all people equally regardless of status. All people are born free and equal in dignity and rights. So it is universal. Human rights are universal. When you say universal, even if you are born in US, if you are born in Bangladesh, if you are born in Afghanistan, if you are born in India, the human rights which are fundamental, which says the fundamental rights, are all equal to all people, right? And dignity and rights are should be given to all the people, okay, without any kind of discrimination, okay, without the nationality, races, ethnic groups, or whatsoever. They must be given the equal in dignity and rights, right? So they cannot uh, 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 break down this giving equal rights. For example, so a person going abroad and giving birth there, so the country should not say you cannot give birth here to your child. You should go to your country and all the delivery process should take place there, which is against the rights because they have the born free. All people are born free and they have their freedom, right? So the country cannot deny to give the medical support in that cases, right? So all are born free in a sense means that I have the right to live, right? You cannot kill me, right? So I have the right to live, right? Even if maybe my parent, it is you don't have the right to kill me, right? There is one movie uh, they say there is a newspaper, it was published, they will criticize that, okay. uh, a mother and two children were committed suicide, okay. Then the writer will say mother committed suicide and killed two children, okay. That should be the correct statement, not mother and three children committed suicide, because children cannot commit suicide. She might have killed those three children, then she committed suicide, right? So here that we are all born free and free to live, okay. And second thing, when you say that the fundamental of human rights is inalienable, means that in that they may not be taken away or transferred. People still have human rights even when their governments violate those rights, okay. So it is not, they cannot be separated. In that they may not be taken away or transferred, right? You cannot give, these rights cannot be given to you, these rights can be given to them. So it cannot be, it is inalienable. And another important aspect is interconnected, right? So one is connected with another, okay. So violation of one rights affects the fulfillment of all other rights, right? So it is interconnected. For example, if you are not, if it is education is a fundamental right, if you violate the fundamental right of giving education to the children, then it violates the employability, right? Or it violates their right of skilling themselves, right? So very very important that is rights are interconnected and indivisible, means no right can be treated in isolation. No one right is more important than another, right? So you cannot say my right is more important than you, or your right is more important than me, okay. So indivisible, no right can be treated in isolation, and no right is more important than another. So non discriminatory, in that human rights should be respected without any kind of exclusion or restriction, as we have said earlier, based on language, religion, etc. There should not any discriminatory aspect of approaching the human rights, okay. So human rights, when you talk about it, is we say that it's universal, it is inalienable, interconnected, indivisible, and non-discriminatory, right? So human rights reflect the minimum standards necessary for people to live. In a simple words, it's a minimum standard, it's not a maximum, right? It is a minimum standard that for people to live in dignity and equality, right? So human rights provide the people the freedom to choose their livelihood, and they freely express their views, right? So what happened during emergency in 1970s, 70 or 71 or somewhere, right? So that killed the freedom of the expression. Freedom is not given. So human rights also guarantee people that means necessary to satisfy their basic needs such as food, housing, education, so they can take full advantage of all opportunities. Okay, so that is very, very important. Finally, by guaranteeing the life, by guaranteeing the liberty uh, and the security. See, if I go out, I should feel that my life is secured, right? No one will kill me. Okay, I am secured. Okay, why the people are taking serious? Why the government is taking serious action in terms of sexual harassment or the killing or murder and everything? Because it's the highest deviation behavior. Okay, if a person is not feel secured going out, or if a person is so insecure when going traveling at midnight, returning home or something, it's serious concern of the government, right? Because it's highly we the government should look into the security of the person, right? So human rights protect people against abuse by individuals and groups who are more powerful. Okay, so today you see one incident happened in Tamil Nadu. You might have watched. A pregnant woman was harassed inside the train, in a running train, in the compartment which is allotted for the women, right? Harassed by two men, and she was luckily saved, and there was a complaint registered. Which cruelty it is! So that brings the so people are insecure about traveling, insecure about going alone, right? So human rights protect people against abuse by individuals, groups who are more powerful. Okay. So according to the United Nations, human rights ensure that human being will be able to fully develop and use human qualities such as intelligence, talent, and conscience, and satisfy his or her spiritual and other needs. Okay. So United Nations clearly ensures. So I am born, I am free to live, so I can, no one can harm me. So I have the freedom such as tapping my intelligence, increasing my talent, okay, satisfy consciously my spiritual and other needs, right? So that is a human United Nations when he defines the human rights. So what is meant for that we need to understand. So what is the scope of human rights? When you talk about the scope of human rights, there are very, very important aspect we need to discuss upon the scope of human rights. So human rights categorize the collection of international law protected human rights, draws a long tradition rights in philosophy, history, and normative political theory. So there are certain categories when you talk about the human rights, right? So when you talk about this, it gives a three important categories of human rights. One is I should have a civil and political rights. I have a as a citizens of country, I should have a civil rights, and I should have a kind of economic, social, and cultural rights and solidarity rights. Okay, when you talk about civil rights, okay, refers to the rights of people. So as a common citizens, what right I have? Okay, okay. When you talk about the first area, that is civil rights and political rights, when you take civil, I should have the equal protection under the law. Okay, the country like country like India, where we say about a lot of segregation of people in terms of religious minority or in terms of caste and everything, we should have a equal protection under the law. Okay, and free from arbitrary detention, right? And fair trial. impartial jury, and religion and worship. So I should have this five fundamental freedom as as a civil rights. When I take up political rights, I should have a freedom of speech, expression, self-expression, association. I can be associated with any party or any religious group, right? Until and then it should not harm the sentiment of the country, right? Or I should not, since I have a, I can be free to form an association. I cannot be part of the terrorism group of association, right? So the right to self-expression and association, and right to vote and participate in politics, very very important. Okay, that gives the clearly tells about what a citizens should have as a civil and political rights. So these political rights guarantee individuals uh, right to participate in public and state affairs, right? So when I vote, I am that I am involving in a state affairs. I am have the freedom. Sorry, I have the right to vote. No one can take my right to vote. Okay, and civil and political rights have been considered as a fundamental human rights in numerous ways, both historically and theoretically. And all nation states have a duty and responsibility to uphold him. Right. So then, when you talk about social economic rights and cultural rights, when you talk about the cultural rights, I have the right to the benefits of culture, right? And the right to indigenous land, rituals, shared cultural practices. The country like India, we cannot deny the rights, indigenous land and rituals and the cultural practices rights. So that if you go to tribes community, the land is something uh, shared for them. We cannot buy the land of the which is given for tribal communities. Very very hard to buy, right? So indigenous land and rituals and shared cultural practices. I have the right to speak language, my own language, right? If I want to talk in Tamil, I can talk where people can understand, and that I have the right to have education on my mother tongue. If it is deprived, I can reach the Supreme Court that I'm denied to give my uh, teaching on education. No one is there to teach me in my regional language, right? So I have the freedom, I have the right to go for that type of rituals. So, in the contemporary period, many other ethnic and religious groups live in diaspora as a result of wars or natural disasters, or political repression, or economic hardship, which is particularly applicable to here. When you talk about African diaspora, which is one of the largest in the world, started with a brutal slave trade and continued till today. Uh, Till today in the US and other countries. So we should thank the economic hardship and the political repression and ethnic cleans in African states. So uh, they have a kind of uh, 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 people or happen to live in other countries as transnational because of kind of disaster and everything. So you see here the heartbreaking sad story of the current exodus of refugees from Arab Spring countries, particularly Syria and Iraq, are caused by a terrorist war and cruel atrocities in those countries. So people are caught there. So the broader sense, none of these factors are applicable to the Indian diaspora, right? We don't have that type of calamity or disaster or war, especially war that is happening in India to make the diaspora community worsening. So we are almost having a good uh, kind of a happy land for other countries, people or diaspora community to live. So this, when you talk about the fun things about human rights. So when you slightly move about the diaspora human rights. So based on this, when you talk about the uh, uh, diaspora and human rights uh, and diaspora concerns, right? We need to understand this refers to the issues faced by individuals and communities on their homeland, right? And right. So when you talk about the why does a person or group of persons leave one country and go to another country? And do they need to have a kind of they need to be given human rights? It's a fundamental question. When survivors of state violence secure refuge in democracy, they gain the opportunity to continue their activism in another country and express their voices in new ways.
Next 1 minute.
Yes,
This
sir.
is second unit, na?
Sir?
This is the other unit, second one.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So can I do one thing? I'll just stop YouTube and maybe I'll add another. Means just make a pause. Start from.
Okay.
Okay. Just 1 minute.